call came at 1:17 a.m., a shrill, digital summons that sliced through the profound, dreamless sleep I so desperately needed.
8.
It was not the gentle sleep of a man at peace, but the heavy, leaden slumber of one who is emotionally and mentally drained. I was out of bed before the third ring, a conditioned response honed by years of practice. My bare feet hit the cold hardwood floor, and my mind, without my consent, was already shedding the comforting fog of sleep and clicking into a state of cold, methodical focus. The phone didn't ring at this hour with good news. It never did. Thorn. I answered, my voice a low, gravelly rasp. Me. We have a 10 to 54 at the old granite quarry off Highway 9, the voice from dispatch said. Calm, professional, and stripped of all emotion. Single victim, apparent GSW to the chest, possible 187. Scene is cold. Leos have established a perimeter and are awaiting your arrival. A 10 to 54, a dead body, GSW gunshot wound, possible 187, a homicide. My job, my life, was a litany of these cold, sterile codes, a language designed to create a necessary buffer from the horrific realities they represented. As the county medical examiner, I was the one they called when life had ended violently, unexpectedly, or inexplicably. I was the physician to the dead, the final narrator of their stories, a tale told through the silent, clinical evidence of their last brutal moments. Understood, I said, already moving toward my closet. E.T. 30 minutes. I hung up and moved through the cathedral-like darkness of my house, my actions a familiar, practiced routine born of countless shattered nights. I pulled on a pair of comfortable but professional canvas pants, a dark polo shirt, and my steel-toed boots. My go bag, a heavy-duty pack that was always kept by the door, contained everything I would need. Camera with macro lenses, evidence kits, swabs, vials, gloves, body bags, a high-intensity flashlight that could cut through the darkest night. The grim tools of my trade. My house. A modest but comfortable home in the absurdly and ironically named Serenity Lakes gated community was supposed to be my sanctuary. It was meant to be my escape from this world of violence and grief. I had bought it precisely for its promise of absolute enforced tranquility. The Homeowners Association, led by a woman named Cynthia Albright, prided itself on its draconian 200-page book of rules designed to maintain that peace at all costs. There was a strict dark sky policy, prohibiting all but the dimmest, downward-facing landscape lighting after 10 p.m. There were absolute quiet hours, where the rustling of leaves was the only permissible sound, and most relevant to my current situation. There was bylaw number 27. All non-guest vehicles must be parked inside. Closed garage between the hours of 10 p.m. and 7 a.m. No exceptions. This rule and my profession were on a collision course. And tonight, they were about to have a spectacular head-on crash. I walked out of my front door and into the cool, humid night air, the scent of manicured lawns and blooming night jasmine filling the air. My vehicle, a county-issued black Chevy Suburban, was parked in my driveway, exactly where I always left it. I was required by the county to take my vehicle home. It was a mobile office and a piece of critical infrastructure, always loaded with the sensitive, calibrated equipment I needed at a moment's notice. To park it in the garage behind my personal car would be to add precious, life-wasting minutes to my response time. Minutes a grieving family or an impatient detective did not have, minutes during which crucial evidence at a scene could degrade. The moment I hit the unlock button on my key fob, Suburban's parking lights flashed once, a brief silent acknowledgement in the oppressive darkness, but it was enough. Like a predator sensing the faintest movement, a blindingly bright, motion-activated floodlight instantly blazed to life from the porch of the house next door, shattering the carefully curated darkness and washing my driveway in harsh interrogative light. I squinted against the glare and saw a figure in a flowing silk robe storm out of the front door, phone already pressed to her ear. It was Cynthia, the guardian of midnight. The engine of the Suburban turned over with a low, powerful rumble. Another cardinal sin in the silent church of Serenity Lakes, as the headlights cut a swath through the darkness. Cynthia marched to the edge of her perfectly edged lawn, one hand on her hip, the other holding the phone like a weapon. "What do you think you're doing?" "Ta!" she shrieked, her voice a piercing violation of the night's quiet. "It is 1 o'clock in the morning. This is a direct violation of the quiet hours. And that vehicle. You have been warned about that vehicle, Dr. Thorne. This is the 3rd time this month." This was our usual exhausting dance. We had been through it a dozen times. It started a month after I moved in, with a polite, passive-aggressive note on my windshield about bylaw number 27. I had responded with a formal letter, explaining that I was a county official on 24/7's call and was legally and professionally required to have immediate access to my vehicle. To forestall any further issues, I had included a letter from the county administrator, formally requesting a permanent exemption from this specific bylaw for a critical public servant. Cynthia's response had been to inform me, via a second, colder letter, that the board had reviewed my request and found it to be without merit. The HOA's rules, she had written, were absolute and made no exceptions for the personal scheduling conveniences of residents. She simply could not or would not comprehend that my job was not a scheduling convenience in her world. Of scheduled tennis lessons and garden club meetings, the unscheduled, chaotic nature of death was an unwelcome and offensive concept. "Cynthia, I have to go," I said through my open window, my voice tight with an urgency she could not begin to understand. "It is a critical emergency." "Everything is an emergency with you," she retorted, her voice dripping with scorn and disbelief. "Your blatant disregard for the rules that we all agreed to live by is the only emergency I see. Selfish and disruptive, and your enormous, ugly truck is an eyesore that is lowering our property values." I put the Suburban in reverse, my patience gone. I didn't have time for this. It was a body in a quarry, a family that would soon be getting the worst news of their lives, and a team of detectives waiting for me to begin my work. But as I began to back out of my driveway, Cynthia did something that escalated the situation from a mere neighborhood dispute to active obstruction. She walked directly behind my vehicle, placing herself in the path of my rear bumper, her hand held up like a traffic cop. "You're not going anywhere until you acknowledge the violation," she yelled, her voice triumphant. "Hey, phone with 911 right now. I am reporting a major disturbance, a suspicious, non-compliant vehicle, and a hostile and aggressive resident who is threatening the peace and safety of this community." I slammed on the brakes, the tires crunching on the pristine asphalt of my own driveway. I stared at her in my rearview mirror, a silhouette of pure, unadulterated entitlement, bathed in the glow of her own security lights. She was actually blocking my path. She was using her body in a frivolous 911 call to physically prevent me from responding to a potential homicide. I put the vehicle in park and killed the engine. The sudden silence was deafening. I could hear the distant, growing wail of approaching sirens, the sound of her petty grievance being answered. I closed my eyes for a brief moment and rested my head on the steering wheel. I had a dead man waiting for me on a cold slab of granite and a very live, very foolish woman standing in my driveway, about to learn a very hard lesson about the difference between HOA rules and the actual unforgiving laws of the real world. The 2 local police officers arrived in a single cruiser, its flashing red and blue lights a shocking, pulsating violation of the neighborhood's sacred darkness. The strobing lights painted the sterile, beiged houses in garish, frantic colors, a visual intrusion on the community's carefully manufactured serenity. They looked young, tired, and deeply annoyed at being called out for what was obviously a neighborhood squabble at 1 o'clock in the morning. Cynthia, however, saw them as her personal cavalry, arriving to validate her authority and finally put me in my place. She immediately launched into her performance, playing the role of the terrified, aggrieved victim whose peaceful slumber had been shattered by a reckless, rule-breaking neighbor. She had even managed to produce a few tears. "Oh, thank you for coming, officers," she began, her voice a trembling, dramatic whisper as they approached. She clutched her silk robe to her chest, This man, Dr. Thorne, he came roaring out of his house in this enormous truck in the middle of the night. The noise was deafening. He woke up the entire street. He refuses to park in his garage like a civilized person. And when I tried to remind him of our community rules, he became hostile and aggressive. He actually tried to run me over. Afraid of what he might do? The senior of the two officers, a man whose name tag read Sanderson, listened patiently. His face a stoic mask that had been perfected over years of listening to such nonsense. He then turned his flashlight beam toward me as I stepped out of the Suburban. "My hand's in plain sight, sir," he said, his voice heavy with fatigue. "What's going on here?" "Die. Why are you leaving your home at this hour and causing a disturbance?" I ignored Cynthia's sharp, theatrical gasp of vindication. "Officers, I apologize for this inconvenience," I said, my voice calm and professional. "I am on my way to an official emergency call. This woman has taken it upon herself to physically obstruct my vehicle and is preventing me from leaving. My own driveway, he's lying." Cynthia interjected, her voice shrill. "He's just trying to get out of being fined by the association. I have a copy of the bylaw right here." She actually produced a laminated card from her robe pocket. "Make him put his truck in the garage where it belongs." Officer Sanderson looked from my calm but urgent demeanor to Cynthia's theatrical hysteria. He was a man trying to find the path of least resistance to get back to his patrol car and a warm cup of coffee. "Sir," he said to me, "we can sort out the legalities of the HOA rules in the morning. For now, to keep the peace, can you just put the vehicle in the garage for tonight?" I realized then that there was no way out of this without revealing the nature of my work. The anonymity I cherished in this place, the shield that separated my grim professional life from my quiet personal one, was about to be sacrificed at the altar of Cynthia's pettiness. "Officer, I cannot do that," I said firmly. "I need to leave now." "Oh, it's my job." I reached into the inner pocket of my jacket. The officers tensed instinctively, their hands moving toward their belts. I moved my hand slowly, deliberately. "It's my job," I repeated simply. I pulled out my leather wallet and flipped it open. I didn't show them a driver's license. I showed them my badge. It was a heavy, gold-plated shield, the state seal gleaming in the harsh white glare of Cynthia's floodlight. And beneath the seal, the words were clear, official, and unambiguous. County Medical Examiner. The effect was instantaneous and profound. Both officers, who dealt with my office on a regular professional basis at the worst moments of their own jobs, recognized the credentials immediately. Their entire posture changed, shifting from casual annoyance to rigid professional deference. They knew exactly who I was and what my presence at a scene meant. They understood the gravity of the work I was on my way to do. "Dr. Thorne," Officer Sanderson said, his voice now filled with a mortified respect. "I am so sorry, sir. We had no idea." The call came in as a simple disturbance. Cynthia, however, was still confused, her reality not yet caught up to the situation. "What is that? What does that mean? I don't care what his job is. He is breaking the rules?" Officer Sanderson turned to her, and for the first time, I saw a flash of genuine cold anger in his eyes. "Ma'am," he said, his voice dropping to a low, stern tone that commanded attention, "do you have any idea who this is?" "He's just my neighbor, Dr. Thorne," she insisted, her voice still full of self-righteous conviction. "Ma'am, this is Dr. Thorne, the county medical examiner," the officer explained, his words sharp and clear as he spelled out the horrifying truth for her. "He's not going to a party. He's not going on a late-night joyride. He is on his way to the scene of a death, a potential homicide. He is a sworn peace officer in this county, and his duties are not a personal scheduling convenience. They are a legal and moral necessity." He took a step closer to her, his voice dropping even lower. "By physically blocking his vehicle, you are not just violating an HOA by law, you are actively obstructing an official death investigation. Under state law, that is a serious criminal offense, a felony." It was at that moment that the full, horrifying reality of the situation finally broke through Cynthia's thick wall of entitlement. Her face, which had been a mask of indignant rage, crumpled. Her eyes widened, her mouth fell open, and a low, guttural sound of pure, unadulterated horror escaped her lips. The noise she was complaining about was the sound of a man going to deal with a dead body. Suspicious vehicle was, for all intents and purposes, a coroner's wagon. The hostile resident was the man who would stand between a grieving family and the cold, hard facts of their loss. The man who might have to hold a dead child's hand. She didn't start crying from fear of being arrested. She started crying from the sheer macabre humiliation of what she had done, of the petty, insignificant hill she had chosen to die on. She had tried to enforce a rule about driveway parking on the man who was on his way to a place where driveways and houses and rules no longer mattered. Sobs racked her body and she covered her face with her hands. A pathetic, defeated figure in a silk robe, her little laminated bylaw card fallen at her feet. "Go back inside your house." "Ma'am," Officer Sanderson said, his voice now just tired. "Now." She turned and fled, her sobs echoing in the night. The officers turned back to me, their faces filled with apology. "Doctor, we are so sorry for the delay," Sanderson said.
Out.
"We'll put a permanent note on this address in the dispatch system, clarifying your professional status and flagging it for a supervisor review on any future calls from the neighbor." I gave a tired nod. "Thank you, officer. I need to get going." They cleared the way immediately. I got back in my Suburban and drove away into the night, toward the grim duty that awaited me at the old granite quarry. When I returned home hours later, as the first faint hint of dawn was bruising the eastern sky, the neighborhood was silent. Cynthia's house was dark and still. Taped to my front door was a small handwritten note, the writing shaky and tear-stained. It contained only 3 words: "I am so sorry." I went inside, the weight of the night, both the tragic, lonely death at the quarry and the bizarre, pathetic drama in my own driveway settling on me like a shroud. I had won the battle with my neighbor, but it was a hollow, exhausting victory. It was a stark reminder that even in a place called Serenity Lakes, the messy, unpredictable, and often tragic chaos of life and death is never more than a single, piercing phone call away.